And today I want to be talking with Rogers Gardens with March in the Garden, or it's a checklist of all the things we're doing in March. And so we're still getting a little bit of rain. March is really the transition period going into spring. So we might be cool, we might get a little bit more rain, but by the time we go into daylight savings, we're gonna really start warming up our night temps. So we'll go from 40, 45 right now, and then 45, 48, 50. So this is a big planting month. So I'm gonna go over everything really quick. And a little plug right now is we're doing Tomato Mania. See by my shirt. So this is Tomato Mania weekend. So Tomato Mania opened yesterday, and Tomato Mania is one of the biggest events to kick off the tomato season. I'll be talking more about the tomatoes and about my favorite varieties, but I just want to show you really quick. Let me grab the sign. And so this is Tomato Mania. So Tomato Mania will go from the 3rd to the 12th. We get about 250 varieties of tomatoes, and we get 100 peppers, and so it's really the time of year where we're getting ready to plant. So get your gardens prepped with your soil, with your Malibu compost, your potting soil and all that, and get planting. So I just want to do a little bit of a shameless plug. Here's my shameless plug. So I'll have my varieties, and my varieties go into Rizzo's Tomatoes, and Rizzo's Tomatoes are my side company where I'll be bringing in my tomatoes in April. So a little bit of a side note, watch for some of my varieties, and let's start the stream. Okay, now with vegetables, we're in a time of year where we're transitioning from winter into spring. So I'll still go through, I'll do my spinach. I'll do a lot of leafy greens. So spinach I'll do right now. I'll do all my my leafy greens, like my gourmet green lettuce. The biggest thing right now is, as we transition, we're almost out of winter and we're almost into spring. So I sort of hold off on a lot of the winter crops. So I'm not doing any broccoli anymore, but I am doing lettuces. I'm doing all my greens. I'm doing arugula. I'm doing all that stuff. Kale, all the kales. So the lacinato, this is one of my favorites. So this is red Russian kale, and I love the Italian Toscano or lacinato. These are the Italian kales. Love them, and you can still plant them right now because they can take the warmer weather a little bit more. You can do parsley too. Parsley, I'll talk more about the herbs. So as we start to go in more into spring, March is really the month to plant tomatoes. Next month is when we'll really get into peppers. We have peppers right now, but if you plant them right now, you'll have to keep them a little bit warmer. So even with tomatoes, I'm going to go through that at the end because I'm going to talk more extensively about it. So look at some of your varieties and prep your garden and get ready to plant your tomatoes. And so that's with the veggies. And with seeds, some of the seeds you should be planting right now, you can do all your root crops like the Chioggia beets. I can do the French fillet radishes. I can do all my carrots, from the Romance to this one is the Scarlet Natives. So you can still do your carrots and your root crops. You can still do your lettuce. Lettuce comes up quick, so your stir-fry mixes. I love the gourmet mix. So if you look in the top, you have royal oak leaf. I love royal oak leaf, so keep on doing that. Then you can really start your seeds. I do these in the house, so I'm actually starting my tomatoes this week in my greenhouse. So yellow brandywine I grab the little bumblebees that are really good, and then this is currant. This is a currant, like Spoon. We got one that's called Spoon. I know I talk about this a lot, but I love this seed company. They're called Southern Exposure Seeds. One of my favorite companies. And I like the other ones too, but I always get such good germination off them. Peppers you can start right now too, in the house. Chocolate peppers. I have jalapenos. And these are a really good frying pepper. Jimmy Nardello, one of my favorite varieties too for a fryer. And so that's with those. And so vegetables, we're on a transition. So broccoli, cauliflower, we're done. Kale, lettuce, green, spinach, we can still plant. So that's important. And now going into herbs. Let's go for the helicopter. They're loud. It's flying low. So now with herbs, we're still doing a lot of the herbs. We're still a little early for basil, even though we're getting it in. Like, see, this is one of the magic fountains, and see, it got a little damaged by the cold. So if you do plant your basils right now, protect them at night. Cover them with a piece of plastic or put a dome over them. Give them a little bit warmer weather. I start my seeds for basil actually next month. Herbs to plant right now, Mexican oregano. I love this oregano. This is such a good one. I put this on pizzas, so very good. I always take a pinch. This is how I harvest it. Take a pinch and you strip off the leaves and put the leaves on the pizza. So, favorite. One of my favorite varieties of mint, mojito. With mojito though, don't put it in the ground. Put it in a pot. Get a little terracotta pot, 12 inches, and do your Malibu potting soil. Good potting soil, good variety. Parsley you can do right now. I like the Italian large leaf, so the flat leaf Italian is good. You can still do all your cilantro. Cilantro likes it cool. Chives, like garlic and onion chives I do right now. English thyme, this is the best time for cooking. So English, I do English thyme. Stevia we're starting to get, which is a sugar substitute. More oregano, like Italian oregano is good. I do like the rosemaries too. Like this is barbecue. So Spice Island and barbecue are two of your better cooking varieties. So nice little plants to start. You can put them in a pot or in the ground. So always all your herbs and even color packs. Have you ever seen the color packs of the Italian parsley? Great to plant. If you're using parsley a lot, buy a color pack because you can trim one, let one grow, trim another one. You can have more of a succession planting. So that's important if you're really using a lot, or if you're using a lot of any of these herbs, double them up or triple them up. Plant about 3 so then you can keep on harvesting. So that's with the herbs. We're gonna get tarragon, and really basil is really better when you're planting a little later when it warms up. So French tarragon will come next month. And that holds true with some of the other warm season herbs and some of the other types. So that's with herbs. Now, so flowers, it's a big time of year. We're in between the seasons, so I brought out, you can still plant your violas. Got some nice little purple violas. So these are good to plant right now. These will go all the way to like June or July, and they'll sort of, we'll get too warm for them. So pansies, you got the majestic pansies. Some spring colors of violas. So these are really good. What else do I have? Oh, let me grab it over here. You can do your alyssum right now. So the alyssums are really good. I have the white alyssum, the purple alyssum. So plant those. And a lot of the other plants right now, they're more like annuals that we use now up to spring. So like with all of your anemones, like your single purple anemones, these are like the double anemones. So these are great to bridge the gap from winter into spring. So when you plant them right now, you're going to get them to bloom for 2 months. And then after that, we'll start getting more of the spring stuff in too. But these are great to start off and really good bloomers. So, and then I got a whole bunch of the ranunculus too. So these are the ranunculus that come, these are Italian ranunculus, and the flowers are bigger. I just have to bloom off. But these have very large flowers, so plant your ranunculus right now. They're really good. Another one that people don't talk about that much is, I love the English primrose. English primrose are so good. They'll bloom all the way into summer. When it gets too hot, they'll probably fade out, but they're great to plant right now because if you look at the way they bloom out of the middle, like down in the middle of the plant, and they just keep going. New flowers, new flowers. We're done with cyclamens now. So cyclamens, ornamental kale, don't plant those anymore. It's going to get too warm for them. So, but now, English primrose and all your different varieties of primrose. So that's important for those. You got more. Okay, here you go, more. I got Gerber daisies. So Gerber daisies are coming in. Gerbers are really nice. When you plant Gerber daisies, though, you really want to make sure it drains. They don't like to be overwatered or they rot. So you can put them in a pot. These will bloom all the way into fall. So very long blooming, full sun, don't overwater them. So the Gerbers are really good. Carnations, I'm starting to get some really good carnations. Carnations are in the family of dianthus. Really good bloomers. Some are fragrant. Some of the red varieties have a light fragrance to them. So you can do all your carnations right now from your pinks to your whites to your reds. So they're coming in really strong. Here's more ranunculus in the white. You know, this is just the premier white, which is a good one. Good bloomer. And with any of these bigger flowering plants, you want to keep on picking those older flowers. So this one's new, but I would go right down here and I would cut it. So I want these new buds to open. So keep on deadheading them or removing those spent flowers. That's important. So that's those. I'm going to shift and talk a little bit. I'm going to move this and talk a little bit about biennials. So biennials are really in some perennials. And so I'm going to shift this over and I'm going to grab some of the biennials you want to plant in spring. So it's a really good time of year to plant your perennials. So we're getting in little nemesias. So this is a white nemesia that's very fragrant little perennial. Usually will last for 2-3 years. You got the purple and then you got another white. So I love nemesias. So nemesias are good right now. I even brought up some, I'm off the screen a little bit. So sorry about that. Like I have so much stuff. So with perennials, this is the time to plant perennials. So we're going to start getting in all the lavenders. This is a Spanish lavender, Lavandula stoichi. You can plant these right now. And then I do have one of my favorites. This is a salvia called Amisteds. I broke the flower on it. It's like, but they have a really deep blue flower. They do get bushy, but I love this variety of sage. Then you have the scented geraniums are starting to come in. This looks like peppermint, so we're starting to see some scented geraniums, good perennial. Another good little perennial, chrysophiliums, yellow flowers. These will bloom year round, so great bloomer. Another one of my favorites, I love these silenes. These silenes are so cool. You can put these as a little ground cover and they bloom these little white flowers, but this is called silenes Druids variegata. Little variegated ground cover, stays very low. I love to put these in rose gardens. So great little perennial to put in rose gardens. So that, and then biennials will be next. So plant your perennials. Here's more salvias right here, like Salvia leucantha. You have the cigar plants. A lot of your hummingbirds like the salvias, even the cupias, the hummingbirds love. Bees love a lot of the open flowers, like all your nemesias. So the second thing, now is the time to plant your biennials. And biennials will bloom through summer into fall. So the ones I always think of, delphiniums, are one of your biennials. You buy the little ones, they'll take off and they'll start blooming, and they'll bloom so good through summer. If you're hotter inland, they might bloom into spring and they cut off, but always look for the giants. Like the Pacific giants, they have a lot of Shakespeare names like Galahad and different, so look for the giant varieties, but Pacific giant is a good one. Magic fountains is more of a dwarf variety. So magic fountains like this white bee, mid blue, they're going to stay lower. So if you want the giant delphiniums, get the Pacific giants. Another one of my favorites is I love foxgloves. We get the foxy. So foxy is a mixed, and so foxies will bloom summer into fall. Great bloomer, but once they finish, sometimes the plant will die down and you cut them really hard, and then you usually will get side plants. But some people leave the flower stalk too long and the plant will die out. So if you want them to come back from side plants, from side shoots, you cut that flower stalk all the way down really hard, and then they'll shoot off little side plants. And with them, usually with foxgloves can take a lot of water. They can take pretty good moisture. With delphiniums, you do got to watch the water. You don't want to overwater them. Where foxgloves, you can water them really all the time. They can be wet, but not the delphiniums. Delphiniums like to have a little dry out between waters, not too wet. So that's important with those. And so with that, covering more of a little bit more of the flowers, you have million bells. Let me set this down really quick. You have million bells. So million bells are starting to come in. This makes a great plant for trailing baskets in full sun. So love the million bells, the calabrosias. We're starting to get fuchsias. So fuchsias are great for shade. This one is swing time and pink galore. Swing time is a really neat sort of pink white, and then we'll get dark eyes and voodoo and all of them. We're just starting to get them. So your fuchsias are starting to come in as we get closer to spring. And so that's it for like most of the flowers. Let's go through the bulbs really quick. Here, I'm gonna bring this up. Actually, I'm gonna move. I got so much stuff. And then once I get done with talking about the bulbs, we'll go into the fruit trees. And then we'll go into tomatoes will probably be last because I have a lot to talk to. Okay, so with the bulbs. So right now, I think I talked about this last month. You want to put March is the good month to put these in. So like all your dahlias, and so these are decorative. So there's a difference between decoratives and dinner plates. Decoratives will get about 4 inches wide. Dinner plates will get like 8 to 12 inches wide. Dinner plates, you should stake the flower because sometimes the neck will break or they'll fall forward. So decoratives are really good. I brought a few out. This is another decorative, the Canary, which is a yellow variety. And then I have more pink ones. And so this is another Joey Gypsy. So there's some really good varieties. I do like some of the decoratives because I don't have to stake the flower, and I still get a good flower for cutting and for bringing in the house. So if you like to do cut flowers, do your dahlias. Dahlias are really good. So that, we're getting in a lot of the amaryllis, the belladonna, and I don't think I brought any of them up though, but we're getting belladonnas, and we're getting a lot of Asiatic lilies. So Asiatic lilies are coming in strong. We got the gladiolas are coming in good. You can still do potatoes now. Like I brought in a red variety called Northern Gold. I put these in 15-gallon pots and plant them really deep so they get a longer spike to them. German butterball, plant them deep and you'll get a ton of potatoes. So that's for the bulbs. And then let's go through, I'm gonna move this, another one that's good too is we're getting elephant ears, like Alocasia calicaceas. You can actually plant these in the house. They'll grow really good in the house, but very tropical, really cool foliage plant. So let's move this. And I want to talk more about, let's move this over. Done with that. Where did I put the other one at? Where did I move it to? Looking for, did we move it down? Oh, grab the strawberries over there. I'm going to talk more about the fruit bearing plants. So, yeah, put the strawberries up there. So, and I'm going to grab the blueberry and all the berries. So now, let's talk about these really quick. Let me grab this. So now is a really good time to start planting some of your fruit-bearing plants. So we're going to talk about strawberries first. So strawberries are great to put in right now in the color packs. Bare root strawberries we're pretty much finishing up because we're going into March. A lot of bare root flowers we're done with now because we're going to start warming up. I love this variety. Seascape is a really good strawberry. This is an everbearing that bears into summer more. A lot of people like sequoias, but sequoias, since strawberries are day length sensitive, as the days get longer, they stop. So June bearing will bloom into June, but the minute we go through the lengthening days of summer in July, they'll stop. That's why I like Chandler, Seascape. Those are my two favorites. I know there's a lot of other strawberries, but I've always have had such good luck. Seascape 1, Chandler 2nd. So plant them, good soil, good fertilizing. Strawberries like really good drainage, so don't overwater them. Keep them consistently watered, but don't keep them too wet. We're getting in our passion wines. So passion fruit, there's a difference. There's flowering passion wines and fruiting. You always want Passiflora edulis. This is called purple possum. This is a good variety, but it's a smaller fruit. You want to go after Frederick. There's one Passiflora edulis Frederick. That's the bigger fruit. That's a good one. So now you can plant your passion wines right now. So passion wines are coming in. Blueberries are coming in too. One of my favorites is a variety from Monrovia. I love Bountiful Blue. I've grown a lot of different varieties of blueberries, and they're all, what we grow here, they're southern high bushes, so they don't need chill. You always got to look at varieties that are 300 hours of chill or under. That's 45 degrees and the total number of hours we get in our winter, so 300 and under. Don't do any of those really high chill varieties. They're for up north. So you got Bountiful Blue, you got Sunshine Blue, you got Biloxi, you have, what are the other ones? Misty, O'Neill, Sharps Blue. There's a whole bunch of them. Jewel, South Moon. I sort of like the dwarf ones. So I go more after Sunshine Blue and Bountiful because they're a tighter plant and they fruit all the way down into the bottom. It's very important with blueberries when you're growing them is they have to have acidity and they have to have good water and good drainage. So I do better with them in containers. If you have raised vegetable gardens, you'll be fine, but they don't like the heavy clay. So one of the fertilizers I use quite a bit is for acidifying them. I've always have had really good luck with cottonseed meal. I know a lot of people like to use the acid fertilizer, but cottonseed meal, they really don't need high nutrients. This is a 6-2-1, so it's 6% nitrogen, 2% phosphorus, and 1% potassium. Blueberries they're not heavy feeders, but they like acidity. So this is very acidic. So cottonseed meal for them, and you can even use this for your strawberries too. Very good for strawberries also. And then going into that, so that's your blueberries. So now your fruit trees. I only brought up the peach tree, which is the mid-blue peach. And so with peaches again, you're going to be looking at some of the low-chill varieties. Mid-Pride, Red Baron, there's May-Pride. So peaches, I always try to keep them smaller because they can get big. These are semi-dwarfs, so we'll get 12 to 15. But peaches are pretty easy to grow here. But again, pick those low-chill varieties, 300 hours or less. And that holds true even too for apples. Like I love Anna apples. I love the Red Delicious are good. You know, low chill. You got to do low chill. You're not doing any of those high chill apples because they won't grow up here. They'll grow up in the mountains, but not down here. So that's important for those. And so that's with fruit trees. You can do your blackberries right now. I love blackberries. You can grow them in full sun. You can grow them in a little bit of shade. They like really rich soil. This is a thornless variety called Big Daddy, and so this is a good one. You have Prime Arc. You have satin, you have a whole bunch of them. So I like blackberries here because blackberries don't need high chill. Some of the raspberry varieties you got to really watch out because a lot of the raspberries are more from Oregon, like Canopy and Indian Summer. So I go more blackberries. Love blackberries. So, and again, putting them in a good mix, feeding them with a good compost like Malibu and Malibu potting soil, and acidifying them lightly. You know, you can use a little cottonseed meal on them. And give them a trellis to grow up. Put a metal trellis, a wood trellis, and get them going up and out. And that's important for blackberries. Regular water, good drainage, and good fertilizing, good acidifying. Another thing I'll talk about briefly is I love the citrus. So we're getting in a lot of citrus. So this is one, I always bring up my favorites that I love. I love Cara Cara oranges. I'm going to be putting one of these in my house. So Cara Caras are good. They're an orange from Venezuela, and they're like a big blood orange. So very sweet, very flavorful, very good. But one of my ones that we haven't had for a while, and I know they're little 5 gallons, it's a little tiny mandarin orange, and it's called Kishu. Let's see if I can, Kishu is so good. I love Kishu. I don't think I can take it off though. I can take this one off. So Kishu mandarin, the reason why I like them is they're a very high sugar variety. They're little, they're easy to peel, and they ripen usually late December, January, but oh, they're so sweet. Even though we got some little 5 gallons, I bought a 5 gallon and I put it into a 15 gallon and I'll let it root for a couple months. Then by June, I'll put it in the ground. And so with the citrus, we're getting some good citrus in, like Meyer lemons. We got a shipment of the Mexican limes. When you're looking for limes, remember, the big lime that's juicier is Bear's lime. The small lime is your Mexican lime or your key lime. So big difference. Big lime, Bear's. Little lime that's tart, that's your Mexican lime. Okay? And that's with the citrus. And if you haven't fed your citrus, feed them. Use the down to earth that has minerals. So that's a good one to use. Has a lot of minerals in it. Has iron, zinc, magnesium. Very important for citrus. So now, how much time we have left, Jen?
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes? Oh, we'll go for another 10. But now, my favorite thing now is tomatoes. So it's Tomato Mania weekend, and so I brought up some of my favorites, and so let's see if I can move them over here on the table without knocking them all over. They're all falling over every which way. So let me try to stand them up. They're all like, oh boy, they're all like out of control tomatoes. Let me bring over some 1 gallons. I'm just gonna set these on the ground. So now as you look into tomatoes, some of my favorite varieties. Okay, here goes one right here. This is a Japanese sweet cherry that's called Sweet Treats. Love this variety, very thin skin, and sometimes this variety is hard to get, but oh, one of my favorites, Sweet Treats. Love that tomato. It's an indeterminate, so it's gonna get big, indeterminate. So indeterminate is a vining tomato that's gonna get big, but vining types give you a longer harvest of fruit. Indeterminate grows a little, flowers fruits, So you get a longer harvest out of them. So that's important for indeterminate vine, determinate bush. Determinates always will reach a determinate size, might be 2 feet, 4 feet, or 5, and then they start flushing fruit really heavy. You'll get a lot of fruit at once, where if you want more of a longer harvest, go indeterminate. Another one of my heirlooms that I love, I did so good with this one last year, Dr. Weishi's Yellow. So it's a big slicing yellow, flavor's so good, one of my favorites. Got some nice 1 gallons, so it's a good one. And then I'm going to go through Bronze Torch is a good one. Bronze Torch is more like a bigger grape tomato, almost like more of like an artesian type of tomato, where very long, a little bit longer, like a little Roma, and very sweet, very flavorful. So Bronze Torch was Tomato of the Year last year, so that's a really good one. Love that one. We'll put that one in. One of my new favorites though that I really like though, I like Chocolate Sprinkles. So Chocolate Sprinkles was a little grape tomato, so flavorful. They actually produced for me all the way into December. So very, very long producer. You have Lemony. Lemony is a really good yellow, sort of a yellowy green, big tomato, good slicer, more mild flavor, but really good. Madame Armand is another one that was Tomato of the Year a few years ago. This is a good one. It's a big red slicing tomato, very flavorful. So I love that one. Cherokee Purple, another one of my favorites. Love Jet Setter. Little red tomatoes that are really good producers. So I love Jet Setter. What else did I bring up? Black Crim is another good, really good slicing purple black tomato. So purple and reds, but very good. We're getting into some of another one that I like, Black Seaman. But one of my other really favorite tomatoes, I brought a couple of them up. This is one of my favorites. I love this. This is called, Pink Berkeley Tie-Dye. So there's a difference. There's a green tie-dye, a greenish red, and then there's a pink purple. So get the pink variety because that has so much flavor, but this is one of my favorite varieties. This comes from a seed company called Wild Boar Farms out of Napa. So check them out too. They're a really good seed company, but love Pink Berkeley Tie-Dye. And then the Tomato of the Year for this year was a variety that's a little dwarf variety called Melanie's Ballet. So Melanie's Ballet is a really small little sauce tomato. So very, very great flavor and more meaty. And one thing that's cool is they got the growers to actually put them in these recyclable pots, and what these are is they're actually pressed out of cow manure. So the little cow, they call them cow pots, but I like these because you can you already see the roots coming through, and the good thing about these is they fall apart, where the old peat pots sometimes they just don't break down, and then sometimes the tomatoes don't root. So you see all these little roots coming through the side. It's sort of hard to see, but yeah, Melanie's Ballet, you don't really, like even with the dwarf varieties, you don't really have to stake them. You can put a little 3-foot stake in there and it's really good. So that's pretty much it for the tomatoes, but I want to talk about soil really quick. So soil and fertilizing. So one of my favorites, I'm going to actually, let's set these on the table. I'm going to move these real quick. So some of my favorite soils when I'm amending the garden. So one of my favorites, I love this soil. This has been always my go-to. So if you're in an area that's really heavy clay, you can break up the clay with just a basic planting mix, like some of the garden and bloom and all that, that's fine. But when you start really working your nutrients on the surface, especially for tomatoes and vegetables, you're using a compost, like, see, this is really good compost. What makes the Malibu compost so good is there's no wood product in here. It has cow manure in it, has real compost in it, and it has earthworm castings, but the main thing, no wood product. So when you use compost that have too much wood product, they rob the nitrogen out of the soil. So what you do with this is, I take this and work it on the surface with worm castings. And so one of my favorite worm castings is, I'll bring it up right here, it's called Worm Grow. I love Worm Grow. So these are my two go-tos, especially for planting tomatoes. My favorite fertilizer too, I love the all-purpose. That's the one for tomatoes, and so for any vegetables. And so now we can answer some of the questions. And for potting soil, if you're potting into these up, I want to show them really quick before we start answering the questions, Jen. I love the Malibu potting soil. This is one of the best potting soils we sell. I don't want it to fall over, but the reason why I like this potting soil is it's very rich, but it has, I'm going to set it down, it has good nutrients, has a lot of perlite in it, but again, it has a little bit of coconut coir in it, has a lot of worm castings, and they actually trace the down to earth, like, bio alive. So that's very important, where you don't have to fertilize sometimes right away, because they take this fertilizer and they trace it into this potting soil. So really a good one. So if you're growing tomatoes and flowers and herbs, do the Malibu potting soil. Has nutrients in it. So questions? We're ready for questions.
So I've only got one question, and it's
only
about
one? There's no more only one?
It's about
Where is that?
blackberries and raspberries. When are the best time to plant those bare root?
Well, bare root's a different season. You got to put them in December, January, and Feb. We're into March now. We're going to start warming up because I plant them earlier. So now I'm planting containers. So when I hit March, because what happens is when we go into March, we're finishing up with rain, right? So as we go into spring, we're not going to get as much rain, and you got to really water them, and it gets too warm. So back in January and February, we're getting more rain. It's going to be a lot colder nights. They don't, because what happens when you plant bare roots right now, they'll try to flush growth, and then they won't have any roots. So better to plant bare roots in January and February.
I have one more question. What do you recommend for sandy soil?
She's recommend, like, they're asking, what do you recommend for sandy soil? So I found for sandy soil, there's a compost we sell up front by Garden and Bloom that I really like, and it tends to be a real high chicken manure compost. It's called Harvest Supreme. I didn't bring any of it down, but it's called Harvest Supreme. And Harvest Supreme has about 15 to 20% chicken manure. That helps retain the water more. So Harvest Supreme, Garden and Bloom, good one for sandy soil. And you can still do the worm castings and the Malibu compost on the surface. And so every year when I replant, I'll put all my compost in, and I do use Harvest Supreme at home in my raised beds. But then I top it with Malibu compost, and then I'll do my worm castings, and I'll work it on the surface with a fertilizer. And another thing that I'll touch on, go high with the calcium for tomatoes. You can either use oyster shell meal, you can either use fishbone meal, or sometimes CalMag. Liquid CalMag is good for calcium, especially if you're growing the sauce tomatoes.
How are dwarf tomatoes grown differently than other tomatoes?
Well, she's asking how are dwarf tomatoes grown differently than other tomatoes. Dwarfs are going to be a smaller plant, so you don't have to put them, you can put them in a smaller container. You can put them in a 14 to 16 inch pot that's 14 inches deep. They're growing the same, but they're going to be a little bush more. And usually with those bush varieties, you'll get really good flushes of tomatoes. But they're just going to be smaller because they're a natural dwarf or a natural bush variety.
And then the last one that we'll answer is, how many potatoes can I plant in a 15-gallon container?
So what I do with when I plant tomato, when I plant, you say, what did you say? You say,
how many potatoes can I?
I was thinking tomatoes. I don't know why. Tomato. But anyway, so with potatoes, when you're growing them in 15-gallon containers, fill the pot halfway with soil. So fill it halfway with your Malibu potting soil. I usually put about 6 to 8 potatoes in there and I press them down. But what I do with potatoes, let's see, where did they go? I want to, before I plant them, I want to make sure, I like to see if they're sprouting eyes. So these are producing eyelets, right? So what I do is when I plant them, I'll do about 6 to 8 in like half filled up with the 15 gallon. I'll press them in the soil and then I'll backfill them and I'll water really good. And what happens when the plants are buried deep, the shoot will go all the way up to the surface, and then you have that long stem. That's where the potatoes shoot off that stem. If you got it too close to the surface, you won't get any potatoes. So plant them deep, halfway into the 15 gallon, okay? And that's it. And this is David Rizzo signing off. You guys have a really good day and happy gardening. And if you have any questions, follow me on social media, look up some of my posts and my videos on YouTube, and come in and talk to us, because we have all the horticulturists are going to be here. And come out to Tomato Mania. We do it now until next week.